Nintendo has a brand new Switch in 2021, and I've been playing it. Do you buy it? Let's discuss. So Nintendo launched the Switch in 2017. It's been 4.5 years for Nintendo's game console life cycle so far. And the Switch is a fantastic place to play games with kids, play all of the Nintendo games that come out once in a while, and also tap into a lot of indie games. The Switch is pretty much the same thing that it was back then, which is that it's something you play handheld or you play docked, and you could also play it in tabletop mode. So the Switch OLED is kind of the upgrade that I've been waiting for a long time, because the hardware for the Switch has started to feel a little bit crusty and old. You have the PlayStation 5, you have the Xbox Series X. These things can perform incredibly graphically, they have nice new controllers, there's a nice shiny feel. The Switch had an older LCD screen, and it was really annoying to stand up on tables. Those two things have been addressed. The Switch OLED's two best features are its display and the kickstand on the back. So the display is a 7-inch OLED. Now OLED has brighter, richer colors. It also has darker black levels. Basically, when it's black, in the dark, it looks completely black. Now, you know that if you used other OLED displays or phones or that type of stuff. Nintendo hasn't had an OLED display on its Switch hardware. The previous 6.2-inch LCD display on the original Switch is not great. It's serviceable. But the new one on the Switch OLED is a lot more vibrant. Putting it side by side, it's even better in person than it looks in the videos and photos. Colors are richer, and I can see things better, also because my eyesight is starting to go. I like the fact that it's a little bit bigger. I mean, look, I bought a Kindle Oasis because it had a slightly bigger screen. That's what Nintendo is doing here, providing you with a little bit better stuff in the Switch hardware equation. Now, the kickstand was the other thing. On the back of the Switch, the original Switch, there's that little pop-out kickstand for standing up on tables. It's terrible. You may not even use it because a lot of people use the Switch in handheld mode or they dock with their TV. Technically, there's a third mode for the Switch, which is tabletop mode. Tabletop mode means you stand it up like a little arcade machine and play with it with the Joy-Con controllers. It's great if you're traveling with kids. A lot of times I gave up on it because of that kickstand. The new one bends to a variety of angles and it's delightful. See, it bends like that, it goes all the way back there, and then it does that and it stays at any one of those angles. I mean, it's just this, plastic kickstand, but it's so much better than the one before. Not to wax too poetic about it, but if you're using it in tabletop mode, this is going to bend to the angle that you want a lot easier and more on the fly. So I found that standing it up and playing games with my kid or by myself, I found I actually wanted to do it more. How much? Well, that's the thing. When it comes to how much I'm going to use the kickstand, not that much. So it's a nice feature, it's not a must-have feature. And the other things on the Switch OLED, there aren't that many more new things. It's got more base storage, 64 gigabytes versus 32 before. Look, you're going to get a micro SD card. So that's cheap, you can expand the storage. 64 though does hold about a dozen games or so downloaded, so that might be more than enough for people who are not buying a lot of Switch games. So it's at least nice that the onboard storage now is serviceable. And the other thing is the speakers are a little better, which I didn't really notice that much because I don't really tend to pump up the speakers on the Switch too much. The dock is also new, but it still is basically the same dock as before, in that the older Switches can dock with the new dock, the new Switch can dock with the older Switch docks. The new thing here is an Ethernet port if you really wanted wired Ethernet. Nice to have, but you do remove one USB 3 port inside. It's firmware upgradable, apparently. I don't know what that's going to mean in the future, but the nice new dock is fine. One thing that hasn't changed, the Joy-Cons. That's a good and a bad thing. So Nintendo's snap-out Joy-Cons are the same as they've been since 2017. You can get white ones with the new white and black Switch OLED model, which looks really nice, or you can get the red and blue Joy-Con model with the Switch OLED. You can also pop your other Joy-Cons, and Nintendo's commitment to that backwards compatibility with the dock and the Joy-Cons is great if you have a lot of gear lying around. But Joy-Cons have tended to drift over time, which has frustrated a lot of people. I find that the Joy-Cons kind of wear down a little bit. The analog sticks are not as good for me as what I can get on a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X. There are no analog triggers. That rumbling haptic stuff is fine, but I'd like it to be better. Basically, there's no pro version of those Joy-Cons, so you're stuck with the same ones as before. That is what it is. And that's pretty much the story with the Switch OLED. This is basically a slightly upgraded Switch with a couple of things that I've been looking for years, which is a better display that has less bezels, looks much more like a tablet, much more modern, and it finally has that nice kickstand. It doesn't have the better Joy-Cons, but for $50, I would pay that if I was getting a Switch for the first time to get the best Switch. I think this is the best Switch. What this isn't, however, is next gen. Right now you have the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, and who knows when Nintendo is going to be releasing some sort of a next generation console. I mean, it's only been 4.5 years, but will Nintendo create some sort of mythical 4K gaming enabled Switch? Will there be a chip upgrade to enable new graphics? So far, Nintendo has not indicated that that would be the case, but you never know. Every other year, Nintendo has some form of new gaming handheld hardware going back to the Game Boys. And whether that means a new design or a couple of new features, that's something to think about when you decide on whether to upgrade. Again, if you're thinking about this though, like a Kindle or an iPad or something that you said, you know what, I wanted to get those couple of upgrades, it's worth it to me, I'll figure out what to do with the old one, maybe I'll gift it, maybe I'll sell it, then maybe it is for you. And maybe it is your first Switch. Also, you might want to consider whether those previous Switches are more of a fit for you. All the features on the OLED Switch are really designed for tabletop or handheld modes. When it's docked, it still plays 1080p games just like the previous Switch did, in which case you don't really need this one. And kids, well, my kids were totally unexcited by this OLED Switch. They didn't really see the idea of a slightly bigger screen being that captivating. And that's because it's more of a grown-up thing to me. I feel like it excited me because my eyes are failing and I like the idea of a slightly bigger screen. That type of incrementalism may not play out with your kids who may want shinier, newer things or save their money for something else. In which case that upgrade, think about who it's for. The Switch Lite remains great for handheld-only games, which is what a lot of people may be using something like a Switch for. In which case, at $200, it's a lot less than the $350 of the OLED Switch. And that original Switch, while it is aging out, it still basically is the same experience with a different screen and that old kickstand. And if you find that on sale this holiday, or maybe bundled with games, we don't know what's coming, but with a new Switch, maybe that happens, that could end up being a lot more appealing as one to pick up, and then you throw the other money that you would be saving into games, because those are expensive on the Switch. You know, look, if I were getting a Switch right now, I would be getting the OLED Switch. I love the screen. To me, I like the versatility of it all. I like shiny, nice feeling gadgets, but you know, that's a grown-up decision and it may not factor into how you're actually thinking about getting this for somebody else. It's the best Switch right now, but it's not a next generation Switch. You just let that filter in to your decision-making process as we think about this Switch and where it's at in 2021. For more information about the Switch, check out some of the links below. If you have any comments, please let me know too in the video. I'm Scott Stein. Thanks for watching.